I know I'm incredibly late with this review, but spooky season is upon us, so I thought I would take the time to talk about Ty West's latest feature, Maxxxine. The story is set in 1980s Hollywood and follows adult film star slash aspiring actress Maxxine Minx as she's finally about to get her big break. However, as a mysterious killer stalks the starlets of Los Angeles, a trail of blood threatens to reveal her sinister past. Yes, after surviving the events of X, Maxxine is desperately trying to be a part of Hollywood history. But her one opportunity to make it big is about to be stripped away from her when somebody begins to blackmail her with evidence about what actually happened in X. And this is where I have a fundamental issue with the narrative in this film. Spoiler warning if you have yet to see X, but that movie ends with the police finding tape recordings of what actually took place in 1979. Clearly, they would have done an investigation to find out exactly what happened, right? But this movie is operating on the notion that Maxxine was never a part of that investigation for some reason. Instead of waiting for the police to arrive, instead of going straight to the police herself, Maxxine just fled the crime scene, and no one ever figured out that she was a part of said crime scene. But now, 6 years after the fact, a random private investigator is able to put the pieces together and is trying to blackmail Maxxine. Why? If the police ever came to question Maxxine, couldn't she just claim that she acted out of self-defense? I mean, what are the police gonna do? Frame every single death on her? That's a little far-fetched, isn't it? Clearly, there would be evidence to support that she couldn't have possibly killed everyone, so would she just get into trouble for not coming forward earlier in the investigation? Because as the survivor in that situation, I can't imagine that the consequences would be so bad for her. So, Ty West's script takes a huge leap in logic in order to make this story work in the first place. But, okay, with my personal nitpicking aside, how does the actual story play out? Okay, I guess, and that's an incredibly disappointing thing to say because I am such a big fan of X, and Pearl went on to receive widespread critical acclaim. But as the third film in this horror trilogy, Maxxine manages to be not really all that interesting. I mean, I really dug the style of this film. The movie has a cool slasher vibe that really works with the whole 80s aesthetic, but there's not much else that the film has to offer. I'm not even sure what the point of the movie is supposed to be. To do whatever is necessary in order to achieve your dreams? I don't know about you, but that sounds rather villainous to me. And that brings me to my next point. How am I supposed to feel about Maxxine as a character? She has gone through several traumatic experiences in her life, and I certainly do feel bad for her because of that, but I definitely don't agree with some of the extreme things that she did in this film, especially when it was just in the name of achieving her fame. Sure, I get that she didn't want to be defined as a victim or a survivor, but that doesn't mean that she has to go around killing folk, even if they are bad people. I don't know, I'm just not sure what the message of this film was ultimately trying to convey to me. So, while Maxxine could have been a simple and effective slasher film, much like X was, I think it tried too hard to be much more of a character-driven piece like Pearl. But in trying to do too much, Maxxine ends up doing too little, both narratively and thematically. I haven't even talked about any of the performances, and Maxxine happens to boast a surprisingly large cast. Thankfully, the cast is also an incredibly talented one, so Maxxxine is definitely a well-acted movie. But I wish that the characters that were in the film all had more time to be properly developed. Still, Elizabeth Debicki is solid as a stern film director, Michelle Monaghan and Bobby Cannavale are decent as a detective duo, Halsey is great as one of Maxxine's friends, Giancarlo Esposito is fun as Maxxine's agent, Kevin Bacon is wonderful as a cartoonishly petty private investigator, and Mia Goth is obviously fantastic in the lead role. So even with all of my complaining, I wouldn't necessarily say that Maxxxine is a bad film, because there are definitely a lot of redeeming qualities here. I just happen to have mixed feelings about the movie as a whole, and that really left me feeling disappointed. So, if you're already a fan of the other two movies in Ti West's horror trilogy, then you may find that Maxxxine is still worth checking out. I just don't think it will be a lot of people's favorite movie in the X trilogy. But the movie also works pretty well as a standalone horror film, so you don't really need to be familiar with X or Pearl in order to understand this one. I just think that, much like Maxxxine herself, the movie never quite reaches the heights that it definitely aspires to. Regardless, I appreciate anyone who stuck around to hear my full thoughts on this movie, so as always, thanks for watching.